You've tuned in to Unpause Your Life with Dr. Callie Estes and Dr. Tara Lynn Sell. Your access to success strategies and more to help you move onward and upward with your life. Listen in each week as they interview others who have really taken their essence to the next level and truly unpaused their life. Now here are your hosts, Dr. Callie Estes and Dr. Tara Lynn Sell.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. This is Dr. Callie Estes, and I am founder of the Addictions Academy, the Addictions Coach, and Rehab Rescue. Welcome to Unpause Your Life. This is a great podcast where we showcase people who have done something extraordinary with their life. I welcome you, and I hope you enjoy all of our guests.
On my way, found a reason to wake up another day. But they needed to show.
Hey everybody, you are listening to Unpause Your Life with Dr. Callie Estes and Dr. Tara Lynn Sell, my new co-host. Today we have Ivan Hunt on, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about Ivan. He's a certified professional relationship coach and an Energy Leadership Index Master Practitioner from the Institute of Professional Excellence in Coaching, which is IPEC. He coaches primarily men around living up to social expectations and the implications. He does this by using a proven process that first identifies the expectations, secondly, finding out if the expectations are applicable, and lastly, how to create a new reality. He is a volunteer for an at-risk male youth program called the 5,000 Role Models of Excellence for the Miami-Dade County School System, a mentor, a motivational speaker, and a disabled veteran of the U.S. Army. Welcome, Ivan.
How you doing, Dr. Callie and Dr. Terry?
Good. Don't call
Really
me Dr. Terry. Oh, God, you started off on the wrong foot. Ivan, I got to tell you, I learned from the very beginning. I said, Dr. Terry. She says, that's not my name. I said, it says Dr. She says, Tara Lynn. I'm like, you have two first names. Can I just call you Lynn? She says, no. Can I call you Tara? I said, no. So just to let you know, it's Tara Lynn.
Thanks. Yes. I'm having an identity crisis, clearly.
You might need
Got
Ivan's
it.
help. All right, Ivan. So tell me, you're in Miami, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Sunny South Florida.
Okay. So tell me, because you work with men specifically.
Yes, and there's been my scope has kind of changed ever so slightly, and my current real coaching niche is I transform employees of life into CEOs over their lives. But what I do specifically with men, and particularly because I mentor at the Veterans Treatment Court here in Miami-Dade County, so I work a lot with veterans, and most veterans obviously are men, and I work with them with dealing with social expectations, or as Terry Britt would say, social programming, and helping them to identify that, okay, here's all these stigmas and expectations that were placed upon you growing up as a male and then going into the military on top of it. And how has these expectations or programming impacted your life in a negative way? And let's see what we can do to move forward and change it.
Interesting. So other than coaching, like what's your background with young men? Did you grow up on the rough side of town? Do you have personal experience? What drew you to this market? Great
question. Actually, I have a great dad. My dad had a lot of issues, when I was growing up. But, the irony of that is we've become best friends as time has gone on. I think what really led me to men and working with men was when I got out of the military, I moved down here to South Florida. Originally, I'm from the foothills of the mountains of North Carolina. And I went through a divorce, and then I jumped into a subsequent relationship, and that was disastrous. And all of a sudden, I found myself here all alone with no family, no friends, and really not even a place to lay my head. And I took a year off. And what I mean by year off, I just took a year to myself. I didn't date anybody. I spent a lot of time in my Bible and really worked on myself. And as I started to make certain changes in my life, I'm blessed with introspection. And I started really looking at myself and looking at my life and looking at the things that impacted me, what led me to this current situation. And I realized a lot of it was based on the role models that I had growing up and what I wouldn't have given during certain times of my life to have had a strong male role model that I could have emulated, especially when I was down here in South Florida going through my divorce, to kind of model myself after. And so I figured I wasn't the only one. I can't be the only guy to go through these things because we're taught not to talk about these things. So, of course, nobody's going to raise their hand and say, oh, I need help. I need help. So I just started sharing my story. And the more I started sharing the story, the more guys started gravitating towards it and started relating to a lot of the things that I had gone through. And so that just kind of led me towards that niche of coaching men and really working and trying to empower men to speak up about their own trials and tribulations, but also be an example for them and a source of hope.
I find this really fascinating, Ivan, because when I worked in a male prison, there is a real lack of male role models, but there's also a lot of male messages that even the inmates got throughout their lives, like big boys don't cry and things like that. There's a culture that women support each other. Do you find it difficult for men to kind of latch onto this idea that they can support each other?
Actually, yes. It's still very difficult. I actually created a meetup group called No Girls Allowed, the men's only meetup group.
I love it.
Yeah. And I got a pretty good response, coincidentally enough. But what I found is it's easier for guys to kind of support each other behind closed doors, if you will, at a very I don't want to say superficial level, but more along the lines of, hey, man, you got it. You can do this. Just keep going. But when it comes time to say, hey, look, I'm really kind of stressed out at home. I'm depressed. My marriage is not really where I want it to be. Or, I feel like I'm letting my kids down. I don't know what to do. Or, I find myself depressed a lot when I go to work and I don't want to be there. My performance is suffering. Now, that type of reaching out for help is still very much a challenge for men. And that's the part of the wall that I'm trying to tear down and let them know that, it's okay to say that you're having these challenges. It doesn't make you less than. If anything, you're empowering yourself to be more of the greatness that's inside you.
Do you think that comes, Ivan, with the expectation that men are the primary caregiver when it comes to financial obligations? They are the financial heavy for the family. They make the decisions. They should always have the answers. And that's trickled down from generations. Do you think that's where that comes from?
I think a lot of it does, yes. I think a lot of it is taught through our family and through the lineage of our families, but also through depictions in movies and media in general, even music for that matter. It's sports. We're just taught that we're supposed to always win. And if we're not winning, then, well, the opposite of that is losing. And for a guy to feel like a loser, it's like the worst, And I do think a lot of it does come from generational teachings. But the thing that I challenge guys with today is that, we live in a dual economy world. And actually women are graduating from college at a faster clip than men are. So the likelihood here within the next generation or two that women out earn their spouse is in all likelihood a real probability.
You got two of us on the podcast that out earn our spouse. Dr. Tara Lynn and Mr. Steve Sell, and Dr. Callie Estes and Mr. Team Estes. So we completely understand that. And well, do you see, Ivan, do you have men that have that issue where their women make more and they feel less than and emasculated?
Yes. And actually, I grew up in a home very similar to that. For the first half of my life, my dad was the primary breadwinner. And then my mom decided to go back to school. And she was in nursing. And she went back, got her bachelor's, then she got her graduate degree. And she became very, very successful in her career. And so there was that financial shift. And even myself looked at my dad kind of in a different way. But now that I've gotten older and I look back at what he sacrificed, and the reason why I use the word sacrifice is he could have easily continued to try to further advance himself financially, But instead, he said, okay, one of us has to provide, and then another one has to support the family. And he chose to support the family. And it kind of sacrificed a lot of his goals and his dreams and his passions, but instead became the rock and the foundation of the family so my mom could thrive. So I find a lot of strength with just in that. And that's one of the stories that I share with men that are encountering this situation where their spouse earns more than they do. And that is not a knock on their masculinity, but an opportunity to really reassess their relationship and find out what roles work best for them within that relationship. And nobody has to be none the wiser outside of the scope of that relationship. And that's resonated with a lot of my clients so far.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. Dr. Tara Lynn, does it bother Steve, your husband, that you make more money than he does? Does that bother? Because it doesn't bother Tim. Tim loves it. My husband's like, fine, you work, you make the money, I'll be by the pool. And by the way, can I have the credit card? So
Right.
how does that work for you?
No, that's never been a problem at all. As a matter of fact, he encourages it, but I'm not sure that he's like a lot of guys. It's because it's been this way probably for the last 15 years of our marriage. So that hasn't been a problem for him.
So Ivan, do you see men that are okay with that kind of stuff, with the gender reversal roles, or do you see most men struggle with that?
I'll use myself as an example, and it kind of hopefully make myself a little more tangible to your audience. I resigned from my corporate career probably about 16 months ago, January of last year. And I was the primary breadwinner in the family. And my wife and I, we both knew that there was going to be some changes by me following the entrepreneurial path of coaching. And right now I find myself where she's the primary breadwinner. And it really, even though I knew it was coming, it was something that was very hard for me. And at times I still struggle. And I struggle more so from the sense of, I don't want to put more on her than what's necessary. I don't want to be unfair to her. And so I think that's where a lot of my challenge comes in. And I think even with, my clients that have experienced some of these things, is there's that their pride of wanting to help, actually, and not necessarily earn more as a means of controlling the relationship, but to be more supportive to their spouse and to really be, they don't want to be that burden or that additional burden of financial stress or just an emotional stress to their spouse.
I think that resonates a lot with Steve and I too, because I know that he doesn't like it when I'm under a large amount of stress, because I think there's a feeling of helplessness. Maybe there's nothing you can do, but I tend to feel the same way when he's under large amounts of stress at work as well. So that was a good sentiment about being a burden.
I will be sending my husband to you, Ivan, because my husband does not have that issue. His theory is mi casa su casa. So if you make the money, I'm entitled to half or more of the money because I cook, clean, and do the laundry and clean up after you. So he needs a little bit more partnership coaching and also financial. And I'm going to ask you this too. Do you have men that overspend? They get, the payday millionaire. Friday comes along, they get that paycheck, and they go out and they got the new kicks, the new car, the new bills, the new hat, all of it, and they can't pay their rent?
Not that I've found. I think where the overspend comes from a lot of my clients is more along the substance abuse side, or some type of self-destructive cyclic behavior. The drinking, they get the payday, and they go binge drinking for a day or 2 or 3 days. That's what I find more than anything, and I think a lot of that has kind of goes back to men not feeling, men feeling this inadequacy to reach out to another guy and say, look, man, I'm really struggling. I'm depressed. I'm stressed. I'm full of anxiety. I don't know how to cope. And so instead of feeling that loneliness or hearing those voices in their head while they're lonely, the payday comes and their pride and their sense of self-worth goes through the roof. And so they want to go socialize, and they want to feel good about themselves. And in return, they've hurt themselves more than anything. So a lot of it is just, that sense of self-worth and that sense of pride, not so much as immature spending.
What's your average age of your clientele?
Really mid-40s,
Okay.
ironically enough. Mid-40s, yeah.
Why
And
is
a
that
lot-
ironic? I
Why
just
is
kind of
that
wonder why. Yeah, yeah.
Because I think, I think most of the time and I'll say we in general, just people in general, when you get to your mid-40s, I think there's this perception that, okay, this is it. This is the rest of your life. And you're settled. And then what? And what I find is a lot of times at this age or during this, this age range, that there's an epiphany of, wait a minute, there's more to life. And what I'm currently doing really no longer aligns with who I am. And so now what do I do? I still got another 20, 30 years to work, give or take. What am I going to do for the next 20, 30 years? And so, there's this epiphany that, wait a minute, there's still more life to live. That there's just more life.
Do you see them going through a midlife crisis? So you have this executive who's built this sort of empire. He's bored or something shifts. Is that your market? Are you dealing with that kind of a thing?
Now it is. Yeah, actually, it's kind of transition. And a lot of my mentoring work, is really focusing on men. When I say mentoring, I'm more volunteer services. But the midlife crisis, I don't know if I call it a crisis. Yeah, I just think it's a midlife understanding. It's an awakening. It's a awareness increase of that, yes. And I think, and now I'm thinking out loud, I think a lot of it has to do with, when we're younger, we see our parents, and when we graduate high school, so forth, they're in their mid-40s, give or take. And so we leave. So that's all we really see. And once we leave the nest and we start becoming, our own individual and start creating our own life, well, we no longer see what our role models do day to day, which is our parents. We don't see how they continue to progress through life over the years through 40s, 50s, and to the 60s. So all of a sudden, here we are. We find ourselves in the very same space that we saw our parents when we left the nest. And now we've had to find our own way. And I don't know if that makes sense, but you get to this space of where nothing aligns. Your career doesn't align with who you are and your core values. And you realize that you play all these roles and all these rules that govern your life and all these expectations and all these experiences. And all of a sudden, it's just like, you know what? Enough is enough. I'm done. And I have to do something that is really, really going to fulfill me, and just trusting that financially, everything else will take care of itself.
Well, I think you're speaking my language as a up and coming empty nester.
That means old.
That means really old. This whole idea of purpose and passion. We talk about this a lot, and you put so much into your kids, and then all of a sudden they're gone, and you're left kind of staring at each other as a couple or as parents, wondering, what the heck do I do now? Right. Mm-hmm. So kind of retooling, redefining who you are as people when your children are not front and center is hugely important. And I guess I've only looked at it from my own perspective of like a grieving loss. My husband is more excited. Yay. Well, it'll just be the two of us. And I'm like, oh no, it'll just be the two of us. There's definitely differing perspectives, but I know that that's kind of the client base that I see here a lot, is people in that phase of their life. So it's really exciting for me to hear this from a man's perspective, and just kind of wondering, what do you want the world to know? What's the message that you want everybody to know?
I want to touch on what you were saying. My wife and I, one thing we do every Wednesday is date night.
Woohoo!
And yes,
yeah,
we do it Thursday.
Oh, it is?
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
So Wednesdays are our date night, and we've done it for probably the last 3 or 4 years. And I think we maybe only missed 2 or 3, no more than 3. And it's really helped us because we're a blended family. So we've already had 2 to leave. We've got another one that's graduating high school next year, and then we've got a 6-year-old. We started over because we didn't learn our lesson the first time, right?
That's awesome.
Yeah, but so I really think it's a matter of maintaining that friendship. I always have a saying, friends forgive, lovers don't. And friendship is just critical in a marriage or any relationship. And I think the message that I really like for people to remember me by is, it's possible to kind of take Les Brown saying that, it is possible that you can truly, truly live a life that's authentic, that's meaningful, that's purposeful, that's inspiring to others, that motivates others, that empowers and encourages others, just by your example of taking a chance on yourself and believing in yourself. Even if you don't know what the next steps are, you just have enough faith in yourself and the universe or God or whatever higher being that person resonates with, that it's going to work out somehow, some way, because the odds of you being you, by Dr. Ali Benazar says 1 in 400 trillion. And to put that in perspective, the life cycle of the sun is 9 billion years. So in other words, the sun will live and die over 44,000 times before there'll ever be another you, or the probability of there ever being another you. So therefore, if you're 1 in 400 trillion, then there is something that only you can provide the world. And maybe I'm selfish and greedy this way, but I want to experience what that is from you. So that's really my message that I would like to leave, that there's something that only you can offer this world.
Well, I love the idea of taking a chance on yourself. And I think that might go back to the male messages, not just about money, but about stability for the family. It's hard to tear yourself away from that stable job to take a chance on yourself, right?
Right. And the irony of that is, too, is that more times than not, if you take that chance on yourself, your earning potential is going to be greater than if you stay in that corporate position.
Right. That is the irony, isn't it? So fear keeps us stuck, essentially.
Right. But lo and behold, you can work to whenever you want to work when you start working on your own, and you decide to do whatever it is you're truly passionate about, because it's never about work anymore. And I think even for men to take that chance on themselves, and I think even to dig a little bit deeper, to really take the time to assess who they are, identify their core values, identify their belief systems, identify their morals, their philosophy towards life. What are their true interests? What are the things that they're willing to research a little bit more? And then what are the things that they're willing to sacrifice to learn more about? And somewhere in between there is what they're supposed to be doing in life. And I just don't think a lot of guys really take that kind of time, because we're taught to go to school, get a job, provide, and be a family man. It doesn't say anything about living a purposeful life.
Right. It doesn't say anything about taking chances either. That's all pretty stable stuff.
That's so interesting we're talking about this, because men, at least from my perspective, is that you graduate high school, you get a job, you stay in that job, you get married, you make babies, you provide, kids leave the house, and then you're sitting here going, okay, I never really wanted to be a construction worker, or I never really wanted to be, what are the guys that do taxes, an accountant. And here I am, and I'm stuck. I really want to do art. And then women, for women too, it's the same thing. They're mom. And for 18 years, they change diapers and go to soccer and go to cheerleading. And then the kids leave and they sit there and go, oh my God, who am I? What am I supposed to be doing? So between the three of us, I don't have any children. I have a stepkid. So I don't have that experience. I've always been me. And I've always been, this is what I'm going to do. So it's unique to see, how the three of us are talking about this topic from all different angles.
Yes. And I think it goes back to even what you were saying. We're taught to go to school, do all these things, right? And then all of a sudden, the kids are grown. And how old are you? Well, you're in your early to mid 40s. And all of a sudden you realize, wait a minute, I never really wanted to do this. My degree's in accounting. And the same thing happened to me. I woke up one day and I realized, I can't do this. There's no way in the world I'm going to make it another 20 years doing this. I don't know if I'll make it another 20 days.
Right.
And my wife and I, we talked about it. And I'm fortunate because, I have a very supportive wife, obviously, but she loves what she does. And I think that makes it a little bit even easier for my transition, because it's not like I've stuck her in a position that she hates. And so now she's miserable, but she actually does something that she already loves doing. So now we're both in alignment and agreement with each other because we're both doing things that we absolutely love doing. So the financial piece then really doesn't take, it's not as big of a role or as important as maybe it would be if she was doing something that she hated while I'm doing something that I love, and I put all that burden on her.
Right. That makes sense. All right. Well, we've got to wrap up. So what takeaways do you have for our audience, and how can they reach you? Website, phone number, Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, etc.
I don't have most of those, but I do have a website. You can find me at ivanhunt.com, IVANHUNT. You can email me at coach@ivanhunt.com. You can find me on Facebook and LinkedIn under Ivan Hunt. I also have a podcast, if you're interested in ever listening to it, called Keep It Moving with me, Ivan Hunt. I say I keep everything simple. If I don't use my name, I'll forget it.
Unlike me, having an identity crisis.
Yes.
Awesome. We're going to put all that up with the podcast so everyone will be able to see your website and then your podcast and be able to reach you for services.
All right. And I want to thank you for having me on your show.
Sure. Well,
really
thank you for coming on. It was a pleasure to have you.
Absolutely wonderful, Ivan.
Thank you, Terry Lynn. See, I got it right.
Terry Lynn. Hey everyone, thanks again for listening. I really hope you enjoyed the show today. Head on over to iTunes and Apple Podcasts and leave a comment or review of what you think. Or contact us at 1-800-706-0318. If you want to be on our show, feel free to email or call. And if you have a topic, feel free to email or call as well.
Thanks for listening to Unpause Your Life. For show notes and more, head on over to unpauseyourlife.com.
Big shout out to recoveryinnovators.com for help producing this show. Thank you guys.
I took a walk down the long road where they said that I shouldn't go. On my way found a reason to wake up another day, but they needed to show you all the things that you won't do. Find faith or religion, but nothing to show for it. No need to escape in love with my pain. I may be awake, but I'm alive, still alive, and I won't be bound by your mistake. No, I won't be your enemy, trapped at the gate. Bring me to life, put me to death. Just give me something that's just not so hard to believe. To believe. To believe. I took a walk down the dark road where they said that I shouldn't go. I knew the dangers of flying. Now I'm so far from